Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and it's time for day 4 of the 2024 Winter Auction, and the vehicle that's going to be available today is the TL-7. This is a Tier 9 turreted American autoloading tank destroyer that is a bit of an enigma. You don't really see too many of them, and I think it's actually a pretty darn good TD inside the game. There are going to be how many available? 15,000 available on the EU server and 5,000 available on the NA server, which means they should go for a fairly good price. But they'll probably be significantly more expensive than we saw the ISU 1222, which barely went for more than the mid-bid on the European server. 30,000 of them were available, and they went for a minimum bid, I think, of about 9,150. Pretty good deal for a brand new TD inside the game. But let's talk about the TL-7, whether I think it's worth it, and also just a quick guide for how I've managed to make my TL-7 work. Alright, so the TL-7 has 4 pieces of equipment that are very competitive. 1 vent, 2 the improved turbo with the reduced dispersion, and then the rotation device on this vehicle, and then coated optics for when you're on a map like Malinovka, or possibly for Prokhorovka, for when you want to not only spot for yourself but also be able to spot for your allies as well. I have 2 builds for this tank. You see that I'm using the coated optics one at the moment, and even though I use a bond rotation device on this vehicle, it was the only one that I have on my account so far until I managed to rank up in Onslaught, I still prefer to use the turbo on this vehicle. That will be what I use for both of my builds, because it still gives you up to 6% reduced dispersion, which isn't nearly as good as the 17.5% you'll get from the rotation device, but to be able to have that extra top speed limit on this vehicle really helps it out. The power to weight ratio on this tank is not bad at 17, its top speed at 50 forwards and reverse speed at 15 backwards is not bad, but trust me, the experimental turbo on this vehicle really works wonders. And as you're going to see in the next replay, where we're going to be having a combat build where we drop the coated optics and focus fully on firepower, this tank is all about taming that gun handling. This is the kind of tank that does incredibly well with very good equipment, a premium consumable, and having good cruise skills. When you start to get things like snapshot on this vehicle, you can tame its horrible dispersion values of 0.28 when moving, 0.28 when turning the tank, and 0.12 when turning the turret. So smooth ride to reduce the movement dispersion, snapshot to reduce that horrible turret traverse. Well, it's not exactly horrible. 0.12 isn't horrible, but I still want to improve it as much as possible. It's funny because back in the day, there was no way for tank destroyers to be able to improve their gun handling. There's a reason why tank destroyers couldn't use vertical stabilizers. And so now you've got 2 different kinds of equipment that tank destroyers can use that improve their gun handling, i.e. the rotation device and also the experimental turbo. Then in theory you could max out at, I guess, about 23.5% reduced dispersion if you get the maxed out turbo, experimental turbo that is, and you're using the bond rotation device. So if any of you are considering getting this tank, really it's the #1 tank that I would recommend putting the bond rotation device on, because it's a tier 9 premium tank, and there aren't that many, should we say, really good tier 9 premium tanks inside the game, and not many that really have, I'd say, an enjoyable playstyle, and it's just a tool. I treat this tank as a tool. I play it when I want to make some credits. I just link it into kind of like my daily routine of vehicles, and even though I've got 750 vehicles on the account, this is one that I will play pretty much every single day when I'm sitting down for a significant session and I'm not trying to like grind on some kind of new vehicle or trying to get some kind of mark of excellence on something. And that is because you make bonds. If you can win and finish top 3, you're making 7 bonds a game. And while it doesn't sound a lot, if you're playing it every day, it does add up, and over a long period of time, this vehicle will pay back the bond vents that I've managed to put on this. And really, the way that this thing scales with equipment, as you can see, the dispersion values and that bloom after firing really hold the vehicle back, and even with, I believe, the level 2 experimental mobility that I have on this vehicle, you can still see that the shell's blooming out more than the aim time will allow. And the aim time on this tank at 2.6 seconds, that's not too bad. I believe one of the things that absolutely revolutionized this tank will be... Oh no, I was actually going to think it was the ultimate field mod on this vehicle, but the ultimate field mod, all that really does is just improve the camera rating. But that can make this thing very sneaky as well. And I'm just hoping, and I was very happy that the CS59 ricocheted there, and buddy, I think you bit off a little bit too much here. Yeah, you couldn't handle the TL-7. This is an incredibly dangerous tank, and while it does have low damage per minute, and you should try and all in it, while it's reloading, just make sure you actually manage to finish it off before it reloads, otherwise it's going to punish you. This is 1,440 damage delivered in 6.9 seconds. That is very nice damage. And for it to be a premium tank as well, that's making all of those extra credits as well as the bonds. Dude, I just really think that this is a very underrated vehicle amongst the community. I don't really see anyone singing its praises. And then again, I guess I can understand why. Because for every game where you get to sit in a wonderful position like this and really choose when you're going to engage your opponents, you do get all in. And when you get all in, suddenly the hull armor of this vehicle feels absolutely awful. And also it does have a bit of a weak point on top of the turret that you have to deal with as well. But if you can go hull down and only expose the turret, it's not bad. I'll take my chances against a variety of my opponents. But oh, this is what I want to see. The STRV gets spotted by me. And I've got, I think it's 120mm on this tank. 120mm means they're going to overmatch the side there. And now I've got Adrenaline Rush. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I am going to go for another reload. And the coated optics really paying off right now. 3,800 spotting. So it shows you it is still worth taking coated optics. And the great thing about if you use bond vents, bond rotation device, and you're using the turbo, the experimental turbo, is none of those require the slot bonus, which means that when you get the choice of the slot, you could just pump up some regular coated optics rather than having to invest into, should we say, bounty or bond optics on this tank, which I think would be nice, but I can't really consider spending whatever it is, 4,000 bonds for the bond coated optics when I'm only really going to use them on just a couple of maps for this tank, namely that Prokhorovka and the Malinovka. And why is the Foch facing me? Oh, no way, not like this. Am I going to get shot in the back by the MX-30? I'm just hoping I can find the weak point on the Foch. And it shows you that the weak point of the Foch is only the center there. We get one shot in, MX-30 finishes me off. But this is still a great result. 7,400 combined, roughly. And of course, when you get 7,400 combined in World of Tanks for a Tier 9 Premium, you make some credits. Juicy 267,000 credits profit. Although, keep in mind this was during the Holiday Ops event, so we'd have to take 70k away from that. But still 200, while also still making 7 bonds. And I vastly prefer the Matchmaker at Tier 9 than Tier 8, as it has so much more variety and no possibility of +2 matchmaking. And I'd rather be playing a tank like this against Tier 10s than playing something that has much less pen or significantly less flexibility. But I tell you what, you've seen how this vehicle does when it's playing its support sneaky role, finishing second on the team with regards to damage while dealing probably more spotting than I think the enemy light tank was able to do. Well, not quite. They did outspot me a little bit, but hell, I got the win at the end of the battle. But let's see what happens when we use the rotation device instead of coated optics. So here we go. Let's switch out the coated optics to go along with that juicy bond rotation device, and we're going to use the enhanced turbo. Hopefully I'm going to switch right at the last second. There you can see it, the dream setup on this vehicle. Bond vent, bond rotation, and albeit I guess I don't have the level 3 turbo right now, but I do feel still that it's quite hard to be able to get components, and I've been putting them in on my tier 10 tanks that I mostly play in Onslaught instead, because I feel like that is the most competitive part of the game. But I think that Tier 9 Premiums are a fantastic option for putting your bond equipment on as well, because I think they are the best tools. So look how this bond rotation device affects our reticle. We're actually fully aimed in between our shots. The only other module that you might want to consider putting on this vehicle might be an aiming device. But I don't think an aiming device is probably still going to be as good as bond vents all round. Because as you can see on the mini-map, we're only just shy of the 445 meter spotting. And if we were to lose the 8.5% cruise skill from the bond vents, that would drop in quite a lot. Plus, remember, that's still going to do about 4% aim time just from the bond vents as well, which really helps get that reticle in the first place. So the aiming device, I really don't think this tank is about hitting accurately. I feel like this tank is about just dumping out the rounds as aggressively as you can. And yeah, that Ferdinand, he's kind of wishing he was probably a tier 9 TD in this scenario. So one of the things I love about this tank is this 10 degrees of gun depression. And again, this like 2.3 second intra-clip reload. I don't mind taking a hit because at tier 9 you start to get a lot of hit points. 1,500 is not bad. It's kind of like the Ferdinand's amount of hit points at tier 8, but that's meant to be a super heavy TD. And just like that, we put in 4 rounds, 4 rounds for 2 mags in a row. And the best thing about this tank as well is if you're streaming like me, you can start to read Twitch chat in between. Or maybe if you're not a streamer, you could alt tab, go and talk to the girlfriend, talk to the boyfriend, send a message to your mum, your dad, or just pat your dog, pat your faithful dog who's hopefully just chilling at your feet, right? Everybody needs a faithful World of Tanks dog, right? And look at this. Look how we can actually fully aim pretty much while also unloading at the maximum speed. That is crazy, and that is something that is only possible with the rotation device and with the experimental turbo, because they stack together. It's crazy. So this TL-7 is a tank destroyer that has the same kind of gun handling that you would get if you were to use vertical stabilizers, which tank destroyers can't have, and they were never meant to. So you can kind of break the system a little bit within that regard. And remember that also the rotation device isn't just going to do 17.5% dispersion, it's also going to improve the vehicle's traverse speeds by 17.5% as well, which means that your turret doesn't feel like it's a tank destroyer. It feels a bit more like a medium with how quickly you can re-engage the enemy vehicles. Now, of course, if you improve your turret traverse dispersion, well, your turret traverse speed, I should say, it is also going to make your reticle bloom out more, because the values that they have for turret traverse dispersion, aka the bloom that you get, and also on movement, gets more the quicker that you do it. But on the other hand, getting your turret around quicker with the same amount of reduced dispersion means that you're going to have the same. You're just going to get there a little bit quicker, right? And then once you've got there, then obviously your aim time is going to start to work out for you. And this is just cruelty to VK. I'm thinking, like, do I even need to shoot him? I wish I had. The Lerva stole the kill there. I was thinking about letting that poor German tier 8 roast. But at least now that means that I can get my shots into the TS-54, and oh baby, this is what I'm talking about. 4.5 minutes into this game, if we picked up 4 kills, done 5,500 damage, and I didn't spam any gold. Yeah, you know, I'm pretty happy with myself within that regard. 252 standard pen here, 315 gold pen, and the gold does have very nice shell velocity as well for any of you try-hards out there. This thing is a mean tank, and look, I'm not going to pretend that these weren't 2 of the better games that I've had in this vehicle over the last month or so. But even when I don't have a good game, I still feel like at least I've had some fun. Even if I just go in and dump in a couple of mags, I've still managed to do a half decent amount of damage, hopefully get a nice impact to get a good win ratio. And more importantly, you're getting those bonds and you're getting some good credits as well. This was 4.5 minutes without a credit booster, without any kind of special event. We resupplied our ammunition, which isn't the most expensive on this tank. As we can see, it's just over 1,000 credits a shot. We make 112,000 credits profit. And that's 7 bonds. That's the delicious currency that everybody wants to get their hands on. And so for me, tier 9 premium tanks, if you can afford them, I don't think it's worth replacing really overpowered tier 8s. You know, if you've got yourself a BZ-176, a Skoda T56, you're still better to play those, or maybe even a Borask or an EBR, because there aren't really any outrageously overpowered tier 9 vehicles in the game. But at least for me, I find tier 9 so much more enjoyable. And if I need to grind some credits, I might as well do it at a tier that I find a bit more interesting, and also make a few sweet bonds at the same time. So all in all, is the TL-7 worth it? Well, I don't know what the base price is going to be, but considering that I said how many were available, 15,000 on the EU server, This should, I can imagine Wargaming are going to put the starting bid at about 12,000 gold. That is just my guess. Is this thing worth 12,000 gold? Probably not. Maybe they make the bid 10,000 gold instead. I think it would be worth 10,000 gold to have a pretty sweet tool for just going in, trying to play aggressive, grab some credits, grab some bonds. And this vehicle is currently supporting a half decent win ratio. And trust me, it is significantly more fun than playing the T3 Jaeger. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my opinion on the TL-7. Really hope this helps you make an informed decision for the auction today. If it does, then give the video a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below if you are a TL-7 owner. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Would you recommend it to other players? And if you're not, are you planning on picking one up today? And how much do you think it's going to go for? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.